officer asks Road Dogg for his real name. He says his first name is Dees and last name Nuts. Yeah. Welcome to Tales from the Attitude Era. As always, it's Rob Pasbani here with my co-host, the former head writer of WWF at the time, Tommy Blacha. Welcome, sir.
Get the F out. Oh, not yet. Soon it will be get the F out.
Soon.
WWE.
And very excited. Last week, we reviewed the Survivor Series, the final appearance of Stone Cold in WWE for quite a while as he recuperates from a serious neck injury. And the EMTs are right here. What the fuck? Right as we start.
Oh, don't tell me he got hit by a car again.
Oh, I'm getting word he's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. No, right. So Austin is out. It's the day after the Survivor Series. And this was a very, very fun episode because you had a theme to go through the whole episode to carry you through, which is these authorities that have come down from Detroit to investigate who ran over Steve Austin, which is a very hot angle.
Yeah. As we said last week, you just come up with someone hits him with a car, then you just kind of follow a logical progression. Like, well, what would happen? Well, I guess someone would investigate it. Like, oh, and then, again, someone's, well, oh, maybe cops should be asking questions. Yeah, that's fun for a bunch of stuff. And it's always good to have a little thematic motif or runner. So I don't know where they got that guy, but he was pretty good. And that was the only direction kind of gave any actor or whatever playing a cop is like, just play it straight, don't be too colorful, there's enough color. Was my whole thing of like, which he was pretty good. The cops were pretty dry, and you get some workers in cop suits always in the back, doing whatever, but seemed to work.
So these are just some random actors you booked. You didn't know these people.
Again, the machine is always like, go to the office. Yeah, we need someone. Like, okay. Although this episode is the beginning of Dave Koechner's small run, in which that case, you see, Vince McMahon was angry about L. Brent Bozell, that's his name, from the Parent-Teacher Council, I believe, which was a
commenter pointed out it's the Parent Television Council.
Oh, is it the Parent Television Council? Oh, yes. And so, it was this quasi-religious organization that watchdog morality and TV, and they were enemies of the WWF at the time, as was Phil Mushnick and a lot of advertisers and what have you, which made me more prideful, and I enjoyed my time there when the WWF was an outlaw entertainment organization as opposed to a corporate darling now. But that's just, my personal attitude. But since L. Brent Bozell made some, when we talked about the Al Snow in the head and all this, that was all like fueled by L. Brent Bozell and the Parent Television Council. And Vince just had a bug up his ass, and he said, we're going to make a character called L. Brent Bozo. And we're going to corrupt him. He's going to come with some moral attitude, and then we're going to corrupt him with drugs and hoes and, all this. And so I was like, all right. And he goes, do you know anyone? And I was like, and Dave Koechner, who I'd known for years in Chicago, I'm like, I got the perfect guy. And this was, this was before Anchorman, I believe, right? When was Anchorman?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This was long before.
So, long before. So I got the guy, and then I went and called Koechner and said, like, hey, can you, I just had like, the office is going to call you if you want to do this thing. You might be on the road for who knows how long, and I told him, like, these gimmicks, they come and go, but you just might be a regular character for quite a while. And then, so we flew him down in like a really quick notice. He went in the office back, introduced him to Vince, and then he was so great, and he's like, oh yeah, I get it. And then he's like, he did this finger waving, like, yeah, I could be like this and do this. And Vince was, he's perfect. And, we were off and running, seeding it little by little.
Yeah, it was great casting too, because unless you were like a real hardcore comedy nerd, you probably didn't recognize Dave Koechner's face at the time. So he could have very well been like a member of this council.
Yeah,
you know?
and yeah,
brought the kayfabe.
especially back then, because there wasn't like, while there was the intrawebs, it wasn't like this. Who's that guy? Google image. Oh, he's in this comedy. It wasn't, quite
Right.
like
Yeah,
that.
it would have been revealed right away, like 2 minutes after he
Sure,
appeared on
sure.
screen. Someone would have tweeted like, "That's Dave Koechner."
Yeah.
Yeah.
How fun. Yeah. So we're gonna have him on soon and to talk about that. That was pretty interesting. And I love how it was seeded a little bit by JR, because we're like, oh, who's that guy? It's going to be like, week one, who's that guy? And they go, oh, hey, there's that guy again. And, that's always fun.
Yeah. I like that this was the soft launch.
Yeah.
In a way, I feel in general, the day after the pay-per-views is always like a soft reset. You have you're transitioning out of the old feuds into the new feuds. And here, especially since you've lost your top guy.
Right.
So everything has to be restructured now. And you see that up and down the card. So we're watching.
And the storyline keeps it, which was like kind of fortuitous about realizing it wasn't like, guy's injured, he's gone. Oh, vacuum. It was still like mystery. Who hit him? He's going to be pissed when he's back. You know what I mean? It's still alive, even though you don't like actually see him. And then the way, the Attitude Era was then, anyone watching is like, is he going to come? Are we going to hear the crash? You know what I mean? No one ever knew what was going to happen. And even if it didn't happen, everyone was still like, what's going to happen? It wasn't like, oh, what a disappointment.
Right. You did not know, you didn't know how long he would be out at all, because again, the insider newsletters, it's not like they were that prolific at the time.
Sure. And also, it wasn't such an injury like, oh, he's blown his MCL, he needs surgery. It was a neck thing. It was you know what I mean? And even they're not going to reveal that. I mean, just like Steve Austin himself, his doctor, whatever, that Vince knew. It wasn't just like, it wasn't like we need our injury report like the NFL. What is it? How many weeks out? That's all pretty much, kept under wraps, kayfabe. And why not? Like I said, it wasn't like his knee's out, he's going for surgery, it's this X amount of time. It was still a little mysterious. And himself too, I'm sure, is someone who like kept wanting to push it and didn't want to go on the sideline, and probably was like, I'm fine. Oh shit, doctor, no. So there's all that at play too. So let's get into it.
So we're reviewing Raw from November 16th, 1999. If you're watching with us on Peacock, it's season 7, episode 46. And we kick things off with D-Generation X coming out. The crowd is already chanting asshole at Triple H, which means you've done your job.
Yep. And he's got those.
Oh, and we're in Pittsburgh, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
At the old Igloo, which is a weird arena that used to like have, it was kind of open. It looked like an igloo. And then part of it, like almost like the Toronto Sky Dome, it would open up and to the outside. But I don't think it ever opened. I think it was immediately broken. It just remained an igloo. But anyways, I just wanted to mention Triple H's backwards Kangol and those heat-seeking shitty little sunglasses, just, heat seekers.
And I want to mention Pittsburgh before we get into the story here, because I've heard from I've seen wrestlers in shoots and stuff talk about how Pittsburgh in general is a very hard crowd to get to react. And I noticed that during this episode too, that other than the intros, or let's say The Rock, who will always get a huge reaction, they were pretty muted, especially during the actual meat of the match. They were on their hands until the finish. Did you notice that in general, or was that something backstage talked about, how Pittsburgh are typically a little quieter?
I heard that too, but sometimes you wonder if it's, some people would say there's something about the actual arena and the sound. Like I said, it was an odd arena. Most, 90% of arenas are that same shape. The Igloo, like I said, it really was like a snow cone shape. It was a very odd place. So I don't know if that had something to do with it or not. But frankly, on that show, I didn't really notice, because the beginning, the same, just, cover to cover signs everywhere. The signage was unbelievable. The crowd was hot and, was off doing other stuff. But what'll come up later is it's Kurt Angle's hometown. And,
yes.
And they were hot for
we'll
him.
Get to that.
And we'll get to that. But yeah, not necessarily so. I didn't notice.
We start with Triple H, and he says, last night a crime was committed, kind of leading you to believe, he's talking about Austin getting run over. But no, in fact, he's discussing that his title was stolen.
Right.
As you remember, the finish of the Survivor Series main event was that Vince got in the ring with the title, and he missed the belt shot, but then he finally got the belt shot on the back hand or whatever, and cost Triple H the title, and now Big Show's the champion. He's almost cutting a babyface promo talking about how Vince keeps stacking the deck against him the last few weeks with special referees, facing multiple opponents. Yada, yada. It's like, yeah, actually, that's a good point, Triple H. But the crowd wants none of it.
Right.
They're just chanting asshole at him, which it's just like, wow, you've really gotten him over as the top heel on the show right now.
Absolutely.
And he says, Vince McMahon, you committed a crime and you will pay for your crime. And DX will be your judge, jury, and executioner.
And that was just a fun thing of like, gosh, that whole, the fruits of the problem solving of Steve Austin getting hit by a car, just like the motif of like, just mention crime and mention, things like that. Like anyone could in their promo, like, you never know what could happen. Ooh, did you do it? Just to keep that shit alive was actually like, wow, that really worked out great. Really, lots of serendipity. We call that serendipity.
So Vince comes out and says that he's against crime. Oh. He says all of DX should be worried about doing time. And then we have the un-PC moment of the week where he says, Triple H, you could be in jail. X-Pac, you could be in jail. And Road Dogg, if you go to jail, you'll really know what doggy style is all about. We're talking about the R word.
Yep. And there's 2 R words we don't talk about. The big red R, and this is prison R.
The noun R and then the verb R. This is the verb R.
Right. But you can be verb R'd. Never mind.
Right. You're by a noun R for sure. Anyway, Vince cuts to footage from last night, and we see the angle again. It's the first time the non-pay-per-view buying audience sees Austin run over. Because again, the internet was around, but it's not like video streaming was a thing. It's not like they could put this angle on. You can't put the angle on the show. You had some stills maybe. This is the first time the majority of fans are seeing this.
And you know what? For my 2 cents, I always like that because you're mimicking sports too. You watch the NFL. They're not going to say like, we don't show the highlights because people can see them all the time now because of the internet. They show the highlights and they talk about, you know what I mean? So I think it's smart. In fact, I think sometimes it's lacking a little bit, the way I like the approach of just, how it was done back then. Like, here, let's recap this. The redundancy of bringing the crowd along. It's not like, oh, I've already seen this, if it's done slick like this. So it's a good piece of business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Vince says a few people from Detroit are visiting. It's the authorities. They're in town. They drove all the way down to Pittsburgh to start interviewing people to see who ran over Steve Austin. And this begins the theme of the show of the Whodunit. And it's a great way to have interstitials and something to go back to as you progress throughout the show.
Yeah. That was a good, set piece, if you will, to have like DX being, just juvenile smartasses being interrogated by or just questioned by authority, another.
Yeah, I did like how this kind of subtext from the company,
right?
From like that authority sucks. Like you should, you should push back. Like everyone pushed back at the like no one showed the cops respect except for maybe Vince. Everyone else was like shitting on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like it's one of those good things where DX can be like they can be absolutely sophomoric and juvenile, and that's fine. They're those kind of baby faces, like the shitty bully kids in class, it's like, oh, that joke's stupid, but they're laughing at it, you know what I mean? It's not even about like making, the jokes good per se. It's just like, they enjoy it. Smart asses,
There's Pittsburgh Steelers in the crowd, and Mankind comes out, and he says, "Hello, Pittsburgh," kind of riffing on the Val Venis line. And he mentions how he lost the night before and notes, just like the Steelers, we suffered a disappointment last night, but we're ready to kick some ass tonight. And, it's Val Venis versus Mick Foley. And this is where I noticed the crowd wasn't hot. This is an angle you've been setting up now for a good 2-3 months.
Right. And
they're finally having their big blow-off showdown. And the crowd could care less. The crowd was like at the popcorn stand or something. I don't know. I was shocked at how little heat this match had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still a good batting average, but occasionally through all that, and I think even I don't want to say there's a hangover, but when you have like a pay-per-view cycle, sometimes in that Detroit show with all that like last minute scrambling and then going, like sometimes there's just like a little bit of a hangover, or just was one of those things. And the Attitude Era was so hot, it definitely wasn't like a drizzling shit match or moment. It just was like not as hot as other stuff, So
yeah. Well, it ended rather decisively though, with Mankind getting the win. Val Venis jumped from the top rope and got caught with Mr. Sacco in his mouth and got knocked unconscious for the win. Mm-hmm. Easy win. Obviously, Foley has to win this. He's higher in the pecking order.
And this might be, one of those things where the crowd dictates Val Venis's push kind of going off the accelerator pedal, if you will. So
absolutely, because this isn't the only crowd that didn't react to Val Venis. You can't really blame Mankind for this one. They reacted for him huge when he walked out. But even in the last few weeks, even at Survivor Series, I feel like he was facing Bulldog, who very much the heel. The crowd just did not react to him.
Yeah, and you can, like, I don't know, Monday Morning Quarterback and hindsight it, like where his gimmick segued from, hello ladies, he's a porno guy, he's a womanizer, and he's this, and then since everyone liked his work and everything that he did, and he brought it, I don't know if his character segued so much. Kind of didn't know what he was about a little bit. It just seemed like, let's drop away some of that hello ladies porno actor stuff and just fit him in. And so maybe that, there's some mistakes made there, you could say, from my point of view, I guess.
I forgive you. We have DX interrogated backstage. This is what we were talking about with the juvenile humor. The officer asks Road Dogg for his real name. He says his first name is Dees. The authority goes, is that Dees? Yes. And last name, Nuts. Yeah. Which, I have to say, it worked for me. Like, it was so stupid. I saw it coming from a mile away. But this is exactly the type of joke Road Dogg should be making.
And they are just like shitty kids in a junior high class that are like the bullies that are just like knocking people's hats off. It's so juvenile and so, but yeah.
And so this is where you see the idea that Billy Gunn is one of the prime suspects. He says he has an alibi. His flight was delayed, yada, yada. And X-Pac gets annoyed. He's like, are we arrested? Like, why we're going to leave.
Right.
What's going on here? We don't need to put up with this. And the authorities say, this is a serious situation. You're the main suspects here. That's when Triple H loses it. He says, if you want to talk about suspects, it's Vince McMahon. He's the one that has problems with Austin. And that DX isn't talking another moment until their lawyer arrives, which is not quite very juvenile. A pretty adult answer to give.
It's funny. It reminds me of it's just one of those things that turned into like, yeah, let's just milk this. Everyone's a suspect, like remember it was, but you had to like think of like, you even talking about it early. Don't paint yourself into a corner, which was kind of, if you remember the old angle of the higher power and who was it.
Of course.
And once I worked there, I kind of realized like, rightly speculated like, oh, no one knew who that was, and you're talking about, oh, what if it was this person, and then at the last minute it's Vince himself, or, or like whatever. Oh yeah. And that was a little bit of a but it was one of those things you learn, like, just get it out of the way. And it's like that in wrestling sometimes. There's a buildup. Shit, this is going to be anticlimactic. Just, it only hurts for a second. Get it out of the way and move on, like a soap opera or whatever. So, but we're not at that point here.
And I remember
with this.
Yeah, I remember reading about how like they brought in Christopher Daniels to try out for the role, and like some other guy, and then Vince took it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they probably tried out a bunch of ideas. He was like, fuck it, just make it me.
Yeah, because it's not only just who it could be, but it's also like you've built up such a thing where it's like you almost do a disservice to the person if it was like, it's Christopher who? Some people know him. Yeah. He's a good worker and they like him. But it's a reveal. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, whoa. So they kind of just make it Vince and move on.
So backstage, Stephanie and Tess arrive. Their wedding is in 2 weeks in L.A. Very excited for this episode. And Luna Vachon pops by. Right. They're being very polite to her.
Right.
She is very excited because she says she also found somebody special.
Right.
And Luna got the couple an engagement present. Stephanie opens it and freaks out. Does a very good double take of like, oh, but tries to be polite because, everyone loves Luna. And Luna says she heard that Stephanie likes stuffed animals. So she got her a stuffed squirrel, like a formerly living squirrel that has been stuffed. And that was a pretty nice bit and a good seed planting the new Luna story arc coming up.
Yeah, and I was totally for that because I loved Luna and I loved Gangrel and talk that up like since there's so much stuff going on in Vince, like I was like, yeah, it's fun if we could do a couple thing with them, and that's like what better bickering couple. And I would to kind of get it over with Vince, like, yeah, it's like the Munsters and the Addams family. Like, they're so fucking weird, but you know what I mean? We see their relationship, and then even like, oh, it'd be great if like Luna, and she plays it so good with that voice where she's like with Stephanie, like, oh, maybe I could be a bridesmaid, or we're going to be friends. Like, oh, Jesus, like the weird fucking girl who's being nice. And so there was a lot of potential for those two, I thought, but unfortunately, a few weeks into it, and I'll try to call Gewurz and see what happened with this, but there was some incident with Luna somehow that I don't even either want to talk about or know. Something happened where it was just kind of told everyone, oh, there, she's off the roster. So it just went away. Yeah. So in that
that's a bummer.
Yeah,
well, it's still a few weeks away still because we still have the Miss Royal Rumble pageant.
Right. So we're seeding it, but this was had a lot of like potential to talk about, and I was really excited about it because just like the regular domestic strife of as wrestling tried to like use the truth a lot. It's Gangrel and Luna were a real life couple. Be like, yeah, I'd like it's like we should do tons of vignettes of them and in what they're like and behind the scenes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just talking things up about the potential of it. And I'm like, yeah, that's Gangrel and Luna, that they're in action. You know what I mean? Reality TV at the time, this, that, the other thing, just like, yeah, this is I feel like I think this is a way to go. There's a lot of potential with this. And this was the very beginning thing. And I thought Luna was great. Like, well, you're getting married. Yeah. She's just, she was one of my.
I love her. I always felt she was underrated. Like she always delivered.
Yeah,
she did.
Yeah. What a sad thing the way she passed and everything. I liked her and Gangrel quite a lot. They were just so. Actually, to me, it's very like pleasant and just. That's what made it so. They were the kind of people, and it did equate that to like, oh, it's like the Addams family or the Munsters. People like, what the fuck, and like, oh no, it's Lily and Herman Munster. They're very pleasant. You know what I mean? But they freak everyone out. Like, does that guy have? Is he tough as shit with fucking vampire teeth and some kind of, his Victorian shirt and Luna with like, are those lightning bolt tattoos on the side of her head and third generation Vachon? They're great.
So back to the show, we have The Godfather coming out. The intro gets refined. I'm surprised about this because WWE intros, they're so great about like the first half a second, or they used to be with Jim Johnson. You know, you immediately recognize who it is, but based on that like first note drop.
Right.
And Godfather had a pretty notable funky R&B.
Yeah.
But they still added "Climb Aboard the Ho Train." I guess they wanted that bigger pop than just the riff at the beginning of the song.
Yeah, maybe. And also sometimes it's called getting high on your own supply, you know, kind of like fucking with something. Let's get, you know, I don't know. It happens.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
A mistake.
And this is where we first see David Koechner. Very subtly, we just see the back of his head, and the one side of his sign says "Worldwide Filth."
Yes. Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Godfather does his whole spiel, super over with the crowd. And then we have Kurt Angle come out. This is his television debut. We saw him last night in his pay-per-view debut. And Lillian announces him as the most celebrated real athlete in WWF history, which is such a great heel line. And Godfather grabs the mic and asks if that's a real gold medal. And then there's a close-up, and you see that Angle is wearing his legitimate Olympic gold medal, as well as some other legitimate medals that he won. And I remember he only did this for a few weeks because one of the medals eventually got stolen backstage. And so you created some, you know, facsimiles because, like, what does it matter? You don't need to be carrying around that priceless memento,
right.
you know?
Exactly.
During the Olympics, I actually looked up how much a medal is. Like, you could buy the medal. I mean, you can't just buy one, but, you know, some people auction off their medals.
Sure.
It's like $12,000 or something like that.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. How funny. I guess some of the
barely any gold in them.
Yeah.
I've learned only 1% gold.
I'm sure some of the values related to what it is. You know, I'm sure you can get like I got a cheaper one. That's for team. Oh, it's Slovakia team handball. Gold or whatever.
I'll take it.
Yeah, sure. But you know,
that seems even more valuable to me. Like the more obscure.
Well,
like a country that doesn't even exist. It could be like a Yugoslavia gold medal or something. So yeah, this was a great bit. Godfather asks, you know, if it's real medals, and he says he'll trade a gold medal for, well, they don't have any gold medals, but they have a hell of a gold spot. And Kurt Angle, like the goody two shoes, leave it to Beaver wrestler that he is, says, "I'm here to wrestle."
Yeah.
Crowd immediately, "Bah!"
Yeah.
That's not what we want. Excellent stuff. And they're doing the match. And again, once we get to the actual action, the crowd is just on their hands. Kurt Angle already showing how advanced he is in his first television match. Gets out of the ring, grabs the mic. I guess he did this last night as well. He said he grabs the mic to get a little more heat from the crowd. Right. And says, "I can't believe this. You cheer a pimp and his hose over an Olympic gold medalist? What's wrong with you?"
Yeah. No, and what disappointed me in rewatching this is because my memory failed me. But since this is a Raw and it's live, somehow I got to talk to Gorge because I remember, and I don't know if we went back to Pittsburgh another time. But I remember distinctly working on a promo with Kurt Angle and Gewurz about how Mario Lemieux, who was a incredible hero in Pittsburgh. In fact, it's almost fable-like. So he was one of the greatest hockey players ever. And when he was at his peak, he was like Wayne Gretzky with 40 pounds more of muscle. He was unbelievable. And then he actually retired and came back out, and he owned the team and played for the team, and he got a special waiver to put him in the Hall of Fame before his 5-year waiting period. Just like fantasy stuff, like ridiculous. Then he got I think he got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He got cancer, which he beat, and then so he was like, he had to retire from the team. And so Kurt Angle's promo was about like, Pittsburgh, this is my hometown. You need, a hero, and I'm here for you. Since Mario Lemieux didn't have the courage to come back and either play hockey or some line like that. And even I remember Kurt Angle going like, "Oh, they're gonna hate me because he's a Pittsburgh guy," and it fucking worked. And there was thunderous boos, but it wasn't in the show. So I'm like, what am I remembering? I'll have to clarify that and because I know that happened. Maybe that was. I don't think it was a previous Dark. I thought it was this, and I was waiting for it. And I was like, oh, it didn't happen, or was it edited out of a SmackDown, or I don't know. But I'll get to the bottom of that.
So Keckner eventually jumps the barricade with his sign and shoves the sign in Godfather's face, and Godfather grabs it and rips the sign to a very big ovation from the crowd.
Yeah.
And this gives Kurt Angle enough time to sneak in behind him and perform what is now known as the Angle Slam or the Olympic Slam. And he gets the victory, the tainted victory. And JR, in a very serious voice, should say no one should come inside this barricade unless they're authorized. We don't want this damn fan.
Yeah.
You shouldn't come out here. You don't know what'll happen to you.
Who is this guy? And then there was even talk, like I said, there's always like talk about a million things happening of like, oh, maybe eventually Keckner can manage Angle from this like, moral, standpoint and be this new version heel, which is a, highly moral, thing, which spawned a lot of other stuff, the moral things later, but was the seed of it here. But
we have backstage authorities are questioning McMahon, and Vince is acting all innocent. And then one of the authorities asks, is it true that Steve Austin attacked you with a bedpan once?
Yeah.
And Vince has this look like he's just been caught with his clothes off. Like, well, yeah, but a lot happened in the last year. Bygones are bygones. And ultimately, he was like, look, how could I have done it if I was right there after it happened? I ran right out after, so I couldn't have done it. And the authority said, well, you couldn't have done it, but what about your associates?
Right.
And then that's the tease. As the next match begins, we learn that Raw is War is brought to you by WWF Meat Snacks.
Yep.
60% less fat than the leading brand. Who says we don't have great taste? I guess this is since WCW has the insane Macho Man Slim Jim endorsement. He's like, we don't need Slim Jim. We'll make our own meat sticks.
Sure. Well, Vince McMahon's entrepreneurial spirit back in the day, I think, I believe it was, what was the name of the company? Capital. It was like Capital. And before there's Titan Sports, but it was Capital something. They owned an ice cream thing in I guess way back in the day, and then they decided to like, well, let's market that through wrestling. So then they had the famous ice cream snacks, and that was based in the ice cream company they owned. So I'm sure this is always like this refuse meat. Damn it, how much does that cost? Slim Jims. We should do that. Also, like, when instead of Twitter taking off, the famous let's buy tout. So instead of tweeting things, you can tout about it on, a social media platform that didn't go. So for every hit that he got, World Bodybuilder Federation, there's a few swings and misses.
XFL
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
XFL, yeah. Which is still around and folded into the UFL.
Rebooted, failed,
rebooted,
bought out, and folded. So now we have Jericho coming out. He's embarrassed. He lost his match against China last night. Claimed he would have a sex change operation if he had lost. Clearly has not begun his transitioning. Doesn't look like he's taken any estrogen, to be honest with you. But he's very ashamed. Then we have Gangrel, who comes out with Luna. Here we see that the two of them are matched up. Great pairing. And before the match can begin, China comes out and says, wait a minute, I thought you said you'd have a sex change, Chris Jericho. And Nurse Kitty is here to help you with it. And they pull out the Jaws of Life, this giant, wrench that you would use to break a bike lock or something. And Kitty says, oh, no, we don't need those. He just needs these. And it's just like a tiny pair of scissors. And then they just make a bunch of misogynist jokes about birth control pills how he's going to need super plus absorbent tampons based on the way he's acting.
It's a full round robin of any kind of male, female genital, including genital mutilation, transitioning. It's full round robin of all that.
Yes. And Jericho, to his credit, he could be no-selling this. He could just be half-assing it, but he is fully committed. He almost looks like he's about to cry. Yeah. He's like, just don't bring this up. Don't bring this up. Like, let me get past this. Finally, Gangrel attacks Jericho from behind. They have a match. Not much going on. Eventually, Chyna makes her way down to ringside, gets on the apron, and distracts Jericho enough for Gangrel to sneak up and do a bridged belly-to-belly, which looked really nice. And he gets the win. And Jericho's very upset about the loss.
Yes.
And backstage, Big Show asks Vince McMahon if he could face the Big Boss Man tonight instead of the pre-scheduled match, which we learned is against the British Bulldog. And Vince says that Show's time Boss Man will come, but Boss Man has a match tonight against The Rock. And he has to face the Bulldog. And this made me realize, like, oh, this must be the top of the hour because they're setting up matches. And sure enough, it was. Because then he knocks on DX's office and he tells all of them that they have matches, that Road Dogg is facing Al Snow, Gunn is facing Test, and Triple H has to start at the bottom of the ladder with Kane, which is almost a knock at Kane, but I get what he's saying.
Yeah, a little misspeak there, whatever.
Yeah. Then we have a great segment. It's the Stooges, Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe with the Authorities. And I like how Gerald Briscoe is very loyal to Vince, saying, oh, he's a great man. He'd do anything, blah, 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 blah. And the Authorities ask, has there ever been a situation where he has acted unlawfully? And Jerry's quick to say no, and Pat Patterson says, well, now wait a minute, there was this one time, and and whatever, and it leads to Gerald Briscoe yelling at Pat Patterson, don't be a stooge.
Yeah. Perfect.
Great bit.
Easy. And that was just the fun of, I remember getting with good words too, once you have set the thing like, okay, cops are questioning people. Oh, okay. Oh, they shouldn't question Briscoe. Oh, just like you just come up with a bunch of shit. So it's pretty fun. And those two are just like, I could watch them all day, every day.
I like how the first two are the serious ones. Like, obviously, if the Authorities were in kayfabe actually doing this, they'd interview DX. They would absolutely ask Vince if he's a suspect, and then you're like, well, let's have some fun with this. Who else could we get? Do we get the Stooges? Later on, you got Lawler with the great bit. It was really well done. We have the Acolytes hanging out backstage, collecting their winnings. Looks like they just finished a game of poker or something. And then one of the Hebners, I believe Dave Hebner, says that there are 4 guys in the back from Detroit who said they have unfinished business with the Acolytes. The Acolytes are unsure, but they walk out to the back, and sure enough, it's these 4 linebacker-looking guys, and like, oh, you want to have some fun? And then again, just another excuse for the Acolytes to destroy 4 random extras and lay it in really hard.
And for some reason, I'm thinking, I can't, like, it was there, like, we couldn't get a bar, you know what I mean? Or it was scheduled or couldn't, Rhode Island was too far, to drive or something. Just do it back here, and just, then like, problem solved. I think quite literally that's what it was. A bar fell through.
That makes sense because then the next segment is them walking around backstage, and Dave Hebner sees them again like, oh, hey, I got those 4 tickets for those guys, your friends that were here from Detroit. Yeah. Do you want me to give them to them? They're right in that room. Oh, they are? Yeah. No, we'll take care of it. And then they walk in, and you hear the 4 guys go like, oh, no, not again. And I think it's very impressive how in 3 weeks you've essentially rebooted the Acolytes now. Like, they're not these goth madmen, they're just these ass kickers now. They're these beer drinking ass kickers.
Stop painting the chests with weird, shitty, occult Sharpie pen symbols.
And now we have the world title match, Big Show against the British Bulldog. You want to establish Big Show as a dominant face here. So this match was maybe 2 minutes. Yeah. And quickly, Bulldog tries to get some offense, fails, gets caught, choke slam, it's over. exactly what it needed for the Big Show to establish.
Doing the honors to the Big Show, yeah.
It's interesting, though, that you sacrificed the European champion for this. You could have found another upper mid Carter.
Is it really that interesting?
But the point is, it's like, who cares about the European Championship? Yeah, it's such a... I always, in my head at the time, I thought of it as the analogous to the WCW United States Championship. And the Intercontinental title was the analogous to the WCW television title. But in reality, it was the opposite way. The Intercontinental was the more prestigious compared to the European title.
Yeah. And it was made later and kind of like, wait, what is this? And then, just kind of...
It didn't make sense.
I mean, it made sense if there was like, to me, if a guy came from Europe with it. You know what I mean? Or But it was a little bit of a mess, I would say. Speaking of obscure titles, remember when Barry Windham showed up one day with the Western States Heritage Championship? Do you remember that?
I mean, that is my favorite obscure title.
Yeah.
But I don't ever remember seeing that
I think it was something where they were like, oh, wouldn't it be great if all of the Four Horsemen had titles? And they're like, well, Tully and Arn... And Arn sometimes was a television champion, but if they have the tag team, and I can't remember why they wouldn't have put the television on Barry, but for some reason he showed up one day and like, he's the Western States Heritage Championship. Like, what? What's that? And then had the belt, and then it had like California, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, and it was like Arizona. Maybe like, never heard of that.
He's just the champion of those states. He's not the champion of Chicago.
Heritage champion. Which even made it like, yeah, we'll have to look that up. Like, what is that all about?
So we have The Rock backstage, and Rock gets a huge reaction the moment he gets on screen. Clearly the top guy in the company right now that Austin is gone. Easily the loudest reaction of the night. And The Rock is in full form. So comfortable in his role, like so no second guessing or anything.
Yeah.
Almost on cruise control. And he accepts Boss Man's challenge. We learn that the challenge is for a hardcore match, and the winner is the number one contender for the world championship. It makes sense for The Rock because he has been he's feeling that he's been cheated out of the world title the last few months. So it's exactly the type of match, he says, that makes The Rock's bacon sizzle. Speaking of bacon, and then the authorities come in. And you drop the storyline framing that the car that hit Austin was actually a rental registered in The Rock's name.
Yeah.
And they asked if The Rock knew that. And The Rock says, of course he did. While you two were at Dunkin' Donuts, The Rock called in his car as stolen. And maybe you would have known that if you were, eating some donuts. And he goes, you just come up here, you interrupt my interview, you have the decency to introduce yourselves. What is your name? And the crowd is like, oh, he's going to do it. He's going to do it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what your name is. Huge reaction. And then he asks, well, let me ask you this. Do you like donuts? Yes. What kind of donuts do you like? A jelly donut. Well, when you get home tonight, and write this down. I like how I kept going, write this one down, write this down. Grab that jelly donut, write this down, squeeze it until all the jelly comes out, write this down.
Yeah.
And you're definitely going to want to write this down. Turn it sideways.
Yep. It all
great.
It all works. There's nothing like a catchphrase or a set piece or whatever where it's like, there's no twist. You're like, he's got to say what we want him to say. And stretch it out, and he's gonna, and then it's gonna, you know what I mean. So even from the writing perspective, do the thing that you do, and it's huge. Yeah, that's when you're over.
Oh, he was way.
It's like Ric Flair's woo. My goodness, decades of woo, and now it's gotten a life of its own. They just play it at like football games or whatever at pure, like you just hear like it's one of the commercial woo in the fucking place, like incredible.
My favorite segment of the night is Jerry Lawler backstage with the authorities, and he says he's his best friend, but I don't know, he can sometimes he's probably coming up and like, and who are you talking about, sir? Jim Ross. That's 2 S's in Ross. Oh, he says that, and then you cut to JR at the table, and he's just like, what the hell? He sold this so good. He's like, I cannot believe this, whatever. And then 2 seconds later, Lawler comes to sit down, and he's like, acting all this, like, oh, thanks for coming for me. I had to use the bathroom. The bathroom? Yeah. What the hell did you tell those authorities? And like, Lawler acts like he has his hand in the cookie jar. He's like, well, look, I went to the bathroom and then they stopped me. I had to answer their questions.
Yep. And it really just blew up because, the whole thing at that time, since it was 20 some years ago, there was a reference point as far as like talking to Vince, whoever. It's like, remember Dallas and who shot JR? And everyone was a suspect, and it just kept going, and it was huge. And like, yep, it'll be that. Who hit who hit Austin? Ridiculous.
You're establishing at this point that it literally could be anybody, especially if like it's Austin's best friend in kayfabe, Jim Ross. We have Road Dogg versus Al Snow, and this is another one where I mentioned to you, like, really no heat here. Lawler recaps the action figure saga with Walmart and the Atlantic Trade Journal, which I think Ross called like the Atlantic Diaper Journal or something. And eventually Road Dogg wins with a pump handle slam. Al Snow is despondent. He's very sad. Mankind comes out to cheer him up, sings for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, says that we need a vacation, and we're going to the city that never sleeps, the City of Angels, and Las Vegas. Sorry.
And also what's something interesting, at least interesting to me, that is happening, and by that, the Atlanta Journal, and why that was mentioned. WCW was the home of is in Atlanta, and a lot of the advertisers. There was some heat on the advertisers for WWF. What was happening was WWF ratings are through the roof, right? But since Mushnick and this parent television council and the Atlanta newspaper are kind of like shitting on the WWF, Vince is like, well, in Atlanta, that Ted Turner, how come they're not shitting on WCW? Because WCW does the same edgy shit at the time. You know what I mean? So it was a weird separation. And there was pressure on, like, they were kind of like saying, we should get some of the advertisers to pull off WWF because they're getting this heat. And Vince was going like, it was a different time because it was all controlled. Like, if you don't have the advertisers, even if you have the numbers, you're going to be fucked. But Vince at the time, there was a lot of like video game companies. There was a different breed of advertisers, if you will. And Vince was saying like, okay, screw General Motors and Coca-Cola and all these people. We'll go with these, video game, people who didn't have the same, like, weren't in the same like morality club as the other ones. And so WCW, and Vince was furious, like, how come Coke's not going to pull off WCW in Atlanta, even though they do the same shit, and we're getting painted like we're this outlaw, outrageous, organization that's, the moral majority's against. So all this is brewing, and that's why he brought in Keckner, and that's why specifically the Atlanta Journal was mentioned, like, call it a rag, call it a diaper, So if that made any sense.
It's just, I always love to hear another reason how Vince has just his little one-sided feud with Ted Turner, where Ted Turner doesn't even think about him.
Yeah. And sometimes for creatively, it makes it better when he had something up his ass about, all right, we're going to like go get Keckner, do this, make these mentions, down, there's a whole energy and there's a whole motif and a theme going, which kind of actually makes it like better, And who knows how much. Well, Vince is more obsessed with Ted Turner, sure, arguably, than Ted Turner is. But who knows? Ted Turner's so mysterious. Like, how much is he, watching this and what have you? So, I don't know.
I imagine not that much.
I imagine too, but I could always be surprised. You never know. Yeah. Also, Ted Turner was like starting his journey into dementia at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't even do interviews anymore. That WCW series, his son was interviewed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think he's a very important figure in pro wrestling. I think he doesn't get the credit due to him. Like, I don't think we'd be here. Like, if he didn't push Vince, the wrestling industry wouldn't be where it is today.
Competition is always something, yeah.
Yeah, like if Jim Crockett got knocked out and didn't have Ted Turner to buy it from him, where would pro wrestling be now? You know, like if we didn't have the 90s boom.
Who knows?
Would it have happened? You know? So back to the show. We have a backstage segment. And this is, I like how you're kind of transitioning from one backstage moment to the other, since everyone's backstage. There's cameras there. Things happen. And you don't know. So X-Pac sees Kane and Tori hanging out, and he says something rude about Tori to goad Kane into running towards him to attack him. Triple H was hiding, and the two of them double team Kane, and he gets attacked. And as that segment ends, Jericho pulls the cameraman, and he's like, "Hey, I want to show you something." It turns out he's kidnapped China.
Yes.
This is also a little un-PC, and he has her all tied up. And he says, "Tell me I'm the better man. Tell them I'm the better man. Because if you don't, I'm going to hurt you." And he has a hammer in his hand. And she refuses to. You know, she's like, "You're not. I beat you fair and square." And he's like, "Wow, you called my bluff. I'm impressed. I didn't think you would do that. I guess I can't hit a woman. I can't possibly hit her." And then he does. Yeah. Dastardly. And she's crying.
Yeah, that was all very interesting, because that was like what we talked about. And I remember kind of like suggesting this, or maybe, it was all a group effort, but it was something that's that same thing of like, well, if he kidnaps China, and there's that motivated camera we've talked about where like the camera's omnipotent, like in a movie, and it's just back there. But this should be, if Jericho's making a point to the camera, he should like take the cameraman and be like, "You got to film this," which kind of breaks away. So there is no fourth wall, so to speak, and then we build a fourth wall and then take the camera. It was an odd thing of like, but everything was just working. So it's like, fuck it, just do it. Like, well, you know what I mean? Because there's other segments that were like, they just do stuff in front of the camera anyway.
Well, also like when JR questions Lawler, like, "Why'd you talk to the authorities?" He was like, "Wait, he had this look like, how did you know about that? Like there wasn't a camera in your face, Jerry."
Like, that's just always, it was one of those things where like you'd bring up, you're like, there's some odd things about the camera and the motivation and what's real and why do people, you know what? Just never mind. You know what I mean? That's why GTV went away, because it's like, there's a secret camera backstage, but everything's a secret camera backstage, because that was always the strange thing. Like participants could see the crowd and the announcers could see something happen, but the participants coming out to the match might not. They're not supposed to know it. It just gets confused, but it doesn't matter, because everything's like, it doesn't matter. It's working. But that China thing was specific like that. And I believe, I went past this, I think Kane pie-faced me running down the hallway.
Oh,
I think I was back there. It was kind of like a little like, whoa. I'm pretty sure that happened. Yeah.
So then we have Test versus Billy Gunn, and Test still selling his nose being broken from a recent episode of SmackDown.
Selling his actual nose being actually broken.
That's right. Yes. There was a sign in the crowd, "Mom is gay."
Yeah.
Okay. And pretty quick match. Test wins with a quick roll-up. Kind of shows you the pecking order here, where you want to protect Billy Gunn, but Test is on the way up, so you need to give him a win. And right after the roll-up, Gunn is upset and gives Test the Fameasser, where Test lands right on his beak.
Yep.
And Lawler goes, "There goes the wedding pictures." And the insinuation is that Gunn may have broken Test's nose again.
Brutal.
We have an interesting segment. WWF's Marissa Mazzola interviews Arnold Schwarzenegger. For those who don't know, Marissa Mazzola is actually the wife of Shane McMahon and the heir to the Mazzola oil fortune.
That's a shoot.
That is a shoot. So, like he might be the poor one in the relationship.
Yeah, the Mazzola corn oil fortune.
Yes, the corn oil.
You know what?
Fortune.
I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely true.
I didn't know that. Very, very pleasant woman. Very nice. Completely like no one has a bad thing to say kind of deal.
Yeah, she seems like the most normal McMahon.
Yeah.
Because she's not one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do remember there was this moment where they tried to make her like a interviewer kind of on-screen character, and it just never took, or maybe she just wasn't
too normal, not into it. Yeah.
She probably just wanted to raise the kids or whatever. Or
this was also just like, yeah, why not talk to Arnold? Another, just keep that alive.
Yeah.
Remember, he's like he's the number one box office guy in the world. At the
absolutely,
time.
and he put WWE over as much as he could.
Yeah.
He couldn't have put them over anymore. He said he had a great time at SmackDown. He said it was a big honor to be the world box office champion, like that means anything. Yeah. And that, there was a little trouble at the end there, but don't worry, I took care of it. I love that.
You can't parody him. He's like, he gets it, right? Oh, what they want? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful for everyone. Yeah, unbelievable. I do love that segment because it's just pure nothingness. It's like no
was nothing.
Insight. Yeah, I was there and it was great, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, see ya.
I looked it up. She also briefly co-hosted Livewire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was a host of that for a minute, and she hosted WWF Divas Postcard from the Caribbean. I'm guessing she did not get in a bathing suit for that one. Oh, and she was Stephanie's bridesmaid.
That makes sense.
And so Vince comes out for commentary for the Triple H Kane match. And there was a sign as he's sitting down at commentary right next to him. The sign said, Vince molests Shane. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, fans.
Well, I would say an estimate of the signage, boy, there had to be 3,000 signs.
Yeah, there was a lot.
I would say, and you can't police all of them.
Well, now they do. I don't know. They have edicts, like certain people you can't mention. They just have people running around pulling signs from people.
Sure, and I'm sure they did a little bit.
Which they should.
Then too, but 3,000.
Yeah.
The tonnage. You're gonna get one through.
And this is interesting because Vince is here just to give off exposition. He's here to tell you what, the company wants to get across as the storyline. And he says he thinks it's Mr. Ass who ran over Austin. He says, what about guilt by association? And Lawler claps back, whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? And Vince says, I know a lot about that.
Yep.
And eventually, this is a basic match just to get to the finish, which is Vince running in and just attacking Triple H in front of the ref, calling for the DQ. Kane is a little pissed, but it's a little odd to watch. Vince McMahon, who is not a pro athlete, just go to Pound Town.
Yeah.
On top of Triple H, just ground and pound, as they say in the UFC.
Yeah.
And we know where this is
and
leading.
Triple H just totally guided Vince through so much, through all their matches and all their things coming up. It was just like, oh, I got a lot of potatoes that didn't get receipts just because, Vince was, he had to bring it and he, didn't have the experience and, that's that.
So then we have the main event of the show, which is The Rock coming out to an insane reaction from the crowd. This is the biggest star on the show, easily. And he takes on the Big Boss Man in a hardcore match. And the winner is the number one contender for the World Championship. And this is very interesting because as a fan, you're like, oh, The Rock is going to win this. And the crowd loves this. They fight all over. They do the main event brawl style that is so over at the time in WWF. And they get to the announce tables, and Bossman's on the announce table. Rock rips one of the pro photo cameras from one of the magazine editors and snaps a photo of Big Boss Man. I love that gimmick when he would do that with like a video camera or anything. And at this, and Ross says that was a hell of a Kodak moment. Here's the touching. Eventually,
a reference that would be
Albert
lost
runs
today. What's Kodak?
Yes, exactly.
Never mind.
Albert tries to interfere. It basically turns into a 2-on-1. And eventually The Rock walks into a sidewalk slam out of nowhere. And Rock takes the pin. Loses the match. Bossman is the number one contender. Makes sense with the storyline. But and I guess as a fan, you do want to see Big Show get his revenge on Boss Man, but it doesn't quite feel like a true world title main event in the WWF universe.
Well,
kind
if
of thing.
the title would have gone over with them, would it have been? I don't know. And so Rock does eventually get his heat back, attacks everyone, even gives poor old Tom Pritchard a rock bottom. Yeah. For old time's sake. Why not?
Yeah. But you get through the show. Get through the show. I mean, it's a great episode. But when I say get through the show, I mean you don't have your top guy,
right?
And in a way, you don't really notice it just yet. I think in a few weeks you're going to feel it, just because it's like, oh, I miss Austin's presence around, But right now, he's still pretty an active character at least.
Well, there's a lot,
if not physically there.
It's still one of those Attitude Era shows where there's like just a lot of stuff's going on, a lot of like turns, and a lot of business to keep up with, especially after the pay-per-view. A lot of like I don't want to say. You never want to say loose ends tied up, but attempting to tie loose ends up, and so there is like still motifs and through lines, so to speak, and just, so many storylines still to service and still adding new ones. And, so it's still that illusion of like, and now this, and now that, and now this, which is what you want. It's still breakneck speed, and it is until years later when you're like, on second analyzation, I guess the crowd wasn't into that one so much. Who gives a shit? Now we're over here, and my God, what's this? And here's the cops, et cetera, et cetera. So
that's a great point. Like obviously it's very easy for me to say this as a fan sitting at home or now like all these years removed from it. But like when you're in it, and you only have so many options to go with, especially in such a situation like this, which is pretty last minute. So you just go with the hand you're dealt until you could write your way out of it.
Yeah, and
right.
And even the postmortems, certainly there's things like, the agents watch and whatever. Like, I guess they sat on their hands at this match or this, that, or the other thing. But during it, you're off doing the Jericho China segment, and then I guess the middle of angles. You don't even know what's going on a lot. You're all over the place, and then you're going to the next city. It's not like sit down and look at it. There's guys giving feedback from the studio as you incorporating that as you go, and sometimes you get whatever like, oh, this person's push is over because someone told or the agent got to Vince about this, or like, oh yeah, they're sitting on their hands, so Val Venis isn't getting the bigger push. Oh, okay, so you get these decrees, and it's just all happening at the same time. It's like it's like working at a restaurant at the pass. Whatever. Oh, this is hot. No, that special's done. Oh, okay. It's just like it's that nuts. Completely. So
yeah. And I mean, like, there's still so much craziness to go. Like there's so much going on at once.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a little overwhelming in the sense of like you have the wedding in 2 weeks. You just had Arnold around. Yeah. You have this big McMahon angle coming up with his match against Triple H, and so it's a very exciting time, I feel, in WWE.
Yeah, and it's so fun because you can just go bonkers, and you got to realize you always have these announcers to make that can quite literally always say that, like, okay, well, let's slow down here now. There's this going on, and hold on, what's this? And you know what I mean? They're guiding, they literally guide you through it, the madness with this framework, that is, that can make all the madness work, where it's like, so the audience is never that confused because you have an announcer telling them that, what's happening.
And if anybody can do that, it's good old JR, right? Like he's the best at that, I think.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's,
he's emotional too. And like we said before, like it was always something to think about. Like you need that. He's a straight man, even though he brings that emotion and he brings that color. He's still a straight man, and he understands that. And you need that. Like the thing of working with the actor who played the cop. It was like, don't be colorful. Don't, you know what I mean? Answer the Rock's questions. Don't, you know what I mean? Be a cop, be authoritative. Everyone, And even like all the weirdos, like, don't make faces, don't, the facials are for the wrestlers are the color, everyone else be straight. And it all worked, I think, quite well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And even like during the China thing, I loved how Ross was like, that son of a bitch. How can like he put on his just that voice. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff to look forward to.
He is kidnapping a woman and then going to hit her with a hammer. That requires a son of a bitch. But that is like Jared's that. Like, well, I think I might, in that instance, I might say son of a bitch. Very well.
Yeah. Or if it's a woman, that Jezebel.
One of my favorite moments still is I think, that's how it worked, telling Lawler like, oh, it'd be great if Lawler would try to like blame it on JR to the cops. Oh, that's great. Then then you have the fun of going tell Lawler like, ooh, that'll be great, and then they just do it perfectly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good and so believable how JR switched off from being mad to like, I have to be professional and call this match, but I can't believe you.
And
JR.
That's how easy it was to do stuff because the guys were great. Or with like the Stooges, be like, oh, it'd be great if fucking Briscoe's just like, no way, he's just talking how great Vince is, and then maybe Pat's like, well, I don't know. That's what I mean. That's literally all you'd bring them. You wouldn't script it out or anything. You just tell these guys and like, oh, that'll be great, and then they just do it in like a fucking take. They're all just like, so you just that was the fun of that job. A lot of people think it wasn't like, here's the script and now here's the beat and now you do it and you say this and you say this. It was just like, here's the nuggets, here's the premise, and when they just react like, oh, that'll be great, let's do it, bring the camera here, do it, great, move on. It's like, oh, that's why you could say what you will but pack that much shit. You got to remember, city, okay, all right, it's midnight, we're going to the next city, okay, production meeting, what are we doing, fuck, changing things on the fly. And just that's the only way you could pull all that shit off, is by having everyone so talented and dialed in to doing shit like that. That's what made it such a blast. And that's what I say about that.
That's the bottom line.
I guess that's the bottom line.
So thanks for tuning in to another episode. We very much appreciate you listening, especially if you made it this far.
Yeah.
Like you're a superstar,
a golden listener.
Yeah, you're an attitudinal for life.
You're a Western Heritage listener. You're a Western Heritage. You're a Western Heritage Championship listener. And if you don't know what that means, Google it and put plus Barry.
Yeah, and let us know what you think. tftattitudeera@gmail.com. That's our email address. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. I guess it's called X, but I like to call it Twitter. TFT Attitude Era is the handle.
Telegram and Tout. No? Okay.
We're not on Tout. Send us some illegal activity stuff on Telegram if you want. Maybe some drugs. Yeah. That'd be nice.
Follow us on the dark web.
And we'll be back next week reviewing the SmackDown after this, and on our road to this wedding, which I'm so excited for.
Me too.
And we'll see you next time on Tales from the Attitude Era.